do a really interesting lecture, show you some things, hopefully blow your mind a bit, get you really excited a bit, teach things that you don't know, stretch you, and then at the end we'll do some practical stuff. And we'll play some playtime. So let's get cracking. So welcome to Intergalactic Tools for Empowerment. So a brief history then, like where are we? We're in what, 2016 now? How long has it all been going on, this game of reality?
30,000 years.
Who knows? Who knows? What do they teach us when we go to school? What do we get taught when we go to school? If you're lucky, get back to ancient Egypt, right? And then beyond then, it's just this mystery and something about Stone Age and something about Bronze Age, and that's about ancient cavemen, right? Yeah. Is that the same as everybody got taught here in West Industrialised School? Yeah, that's it? Right. Now you leave that place and you try your best to undo all of the conditioning and the programming and all of that. And then somewhere in the distance, there's this concept of like Atlantis. Everybody heard of that place? Yeah, you're all kind of like there, exploring that. Put your hands up if you've never heard of that. Put your hands up if you believe in that part of our ancient history. Great. We've got some followers here. That's good. And Mesopotamia as well. Ancient Mesopotamia. So then you can go and you can see, the Aztecs and all of that. And there's a real mysteries in there around these ancient cultures. How did they build the pyramids? What were the pyramids for? All this ancient knowledge and hidden mysteries in these ancient cultures. They seem to have these powers of architecture. And in the temples, there's the inscriptions and carvings and drawings of mystical ways of healing. And symbols and things like the Ankh and all of these tools. What they seem to use for something, and we don't know that it's lost. It's been hidden from us, hasn't it? But we're kind of remembering those things bit by bit. We all go and explore, and bits come back to us, or we might work with a metaphysical realm and learn some more of that wisdom. So it's really exciting times. And recently, in my own research, I've come across a man called Michael Tsarion. Has anybody ever heard of Michael Tsarion? He is a legend, isn't he? Absolutely incredible man. I invite you all to watch his 8-hour-long lectures instead of doing any of these rubbish box sets on a Sunday. Do Michael Tsarion. It's well worth it. And he uncovers a lot of that occult history that we should have been taught. And he gives evidence as well. It's not just some man who's got his own ramblings and his own notions about things. He digs deep. And he's from Ireland, and he goes right into ancient antiquity. And it's really interesting what he comes up with. So apparently there was this continent called Lemuria. So Le being the, Mu, as in this continent, where kind of Atlantis was, that time, that era. And there was a people, a way of living like humans, like we are now, living in this age of awakening, trying to remember these things. And we do all of our meditations and we come to things like this, don't we, to try and raise our frequency and ascend. And we've got all these concepts like spirituality, like this process of actualising the self and trying to connect with angels or unicorns, elemental realms, all of these things that we do to grow more and be more and discover more of that potential. So I believe, and a lot of others who I learn from, and some of you as well who put your hands up about Atlantis will also believe, that in those days they understood some of these ancient symbols. They knew a bit more about what we're trying to uncover. They could do things that we couldn't do. They were magicians. They were these beings of light, of love, of light, of this real high frequency. And they worked with the elements in ways that we have forgotten, that we can't do yet. And so we're on a process of going back there, but we had a cataclysm. So the floods in the Bible, it's talked about, if you look, there were actually floods. Just this mad story in this guy called Noah. There were. Now, there's different theories of where them floods came from, whether it was a shifting of the poles axes. So around the equator, the Earth's kind of fatter, so it's an oval shape, it's not really a sphere. So if the poles tipped, then that fatness of the water would also move, so that means the sea levels would change. Now, I've seen evidence of this with my own eyes on top of cliffs in Madagascar. There are ancient coral reef beds, and you can walk on top of them, and you're literally high above sea level. And there's this really beautiful Singhi National Park. I think there might also be one in Australia, and you look across and it's just loads and loads of limestone, all jaggedy peaks. But there seems to be like a top part sat on top of all of them, and it's the same level. So it looks like it's been eroded by water just up to this one particular point. So I've seen this evidence with my own eyes. So it looks like there was a higher water level on the Earth previously. Either that, or there was another planet which was a water planet, and there was an intergalactic war, and this is the most interesting one. An intergalactic war, the goodies were running away from the baddies, and they were like, they landed on this water planet and went, right, let's do a diversion, we'll pretend we're going to stay here, but really we'll go to that place there, Earth. And so the baddies thought the goodies were on this water planet and blew the water planet up. So then there was loads of asteroids, but they weren't really asteroids, they were massive water droplets that just came and bashed into Earth. And then we had this big flood. So we had all this extra water that came from outer space. So that's another theory. But yeah, so there's this book by this man, James Churchard, I think that says. And it says in here, there's bits of this lost continent of Mu, you know, which was sunk under this water with all this amazing technology and all of this ancient wisdom and, you know, this cataclysm that we all suffered as a race of beings. It says the whole continent heaved and rolled like the ocean's waves. The land trembled and shook like the leaves of a tree in a storm. Temples and palaces came crashing to the ground, and monuments and statues were overturned. The cities became heaps of ruins as the land rose and fell, quivered and shook. The fires of the underneath burst forth, piercing the clouds in roaring flames, 3 miles in diameter. They were met by lightning shafts which filled the heavens. A thick black pall of smoke overshadowed the land. And so that's talking about this massive cataclysm. You know, we've had recently with tidal waves and tsunamis. That's the same thing, isn't it? Tsunamis, you know, wiping out cultures almost, you know, on the scar, the psychological scar, you know, the imprint in those people will take years and years and years to heal, won't it? Well, this was on a planetary scale. Imagine every single person all over the planet all going through this trauma all at the same time. And so Michael Tsarion reasons that that's where these negative aspects of the psyche come from. This deep scar that's in us. And so before this, we were benevolent, we were wholeheartedly loving, we understood unconditional love. You know, there wasn't any slavery, there was no power over other people. We all worked in harmonic compliance. There was no rules and regulations because we didn't need any of that. We were all working for the greater good because we all understood that we were one. We were all joined in our hearts. And there were people who'd gone through specific initiations who owned the wisdom, but we didn't give it to them because they were better than us. They had it because they'd gone through this process of making sure they're in the right integrity to hold such power as to be able to manipulate the elements and the energies and things like that. So they were the ones who we want to have it. You know, people who aren't in that space in integrity, people who are a bit more juvenile in the development, might not use those powers for the greater good. They might use them for other things. And so that's how it was in them times. And so we went through all of this, and this is beautiful. Dudley White, Druids, the ancient faith of Britain, talks about, you know, there's these stories of submersions of cities beneath the various lakes of the county, and they're still current throughout the whole of Wales. I thought that was apt because we're all in Wales. The annotator of Camden mentions the names of no fewer than 6 lakes in which ancient cities are reported to have been submerged. And if you do your digging, you'll see there's loads of pictures everywhere of cities underneath the sea. So again, that's a bit of evidence that, you know, this happened. Down in the bottom of the sea are the proud cities and the worldly treasures corrupted with evil. And that's a Song of the Flood by Hopi Indians. So we had this big cataclysm, and then so there were people scattered about the earth, and they were the druids. They went out, they had this wisdom from these ancient beautiful lands, you know, and tried to find refuge and solace. And so were they the people then that went and taught and initiated the people in ancient Egypt? It gifted them a little bit of the wisdom, and then Socrates and Plato went and visited those places and learned a bit and brought a bit back, and there we've got mathematics and, you know, the basics of our own engineering and things like that. But they hid so much, and so much got lost, and so much got submerged, and so we're re-remembering it now. So druid origins, Gaelic, the Gaelic word dryad, which is kindred, or one who knows, or the one who has the knowledge. and the suffix vid is the root of wizard and wise. The syllable is Vedic and Veda, which connotes highest wisdom. And Druthin, which is another derivative of the word, means servant of truth, and in German means servant of God. Well, if you think about God from a more universal kind of perspective, not so much of a religious one, isn't that just the oneness that we all are, this energy which is, that we're all a part of? So is that not truth? So is that not the same thing, really, if you think about it from that perspective? And Irish priestesses were called druids. And truth derives from this word, druthin. And so the D it becomes a T, so truth. So druids then were the wisdom keepers, these people that had this wisdom. And so then you've got, people going to up the Nile, having their initiations through the different pyramids, going into the Great Pyramid where you've got the King's Chamber, where it's like facing the fears, almost like the stories they have the hero, like Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. And you have to be strong of heart, or what was his name, Atreyu in the Neverending Story. And he has to go to the gate of the oracles. Have you all seen that? And he has to have courage in his heart, doesn't he? And he has to have integrity. Otherwise, he can't get through. Not worthy, are they? If they haven't got these things, they've not manifested these things in themselves. You have to be masters of the self first before you can be masters of the universe. Because you don't want that power to be in the wrong hands. And that's what's echoed, isn't it, for all the goodies in the Bible and these gems and all these stories and films and things like that. So yeah, we're up the Nile, we got initiated, the women were on one side with the Sphinx, and doing their thing, and then we went to the other side, and went into the King's Chamber, and we got tested, and then we went into the Queen's Chamber, and it was only then we got to go into the Temple of Isis, where the womb is, where you go into the black light, and you could melt into that space, and then you were literally in the mysteries of creation. You were gifted all of that. And so what we're trying to do now, I believe, is come back to that. So we're going on this cycle, procession of the equinoxes, yeah? The age of Aquarius is coming, we've all heard of that, that song, when the moon is in the seventh house. It's a good song, isn't it? Let the sun shine. It's a good song, isn't it? So, that's what we're going through now. So we're re-emerging. So if you think about this procession of the equinoxes, the sun goes backwards through all the signs, yeah? 13,000 years ago, which is around this time, the ancient days of Atlantis, that's around that time, the epitome of enlightenment, we were in sign of Leo. And Leo, that sign, and it links to the tarot card, again, it all resonates, this truth. And this age of Aquarius is on the opposite side. So can you see that? So we're just coming out of the age of Pisces now. Yeah? Each age lasts just over 2,000 years. 2,000 years ago, the rise of Jesus, the two fish, the Pisces. Before that, there was Rams, which was Aries. And so it's all there in history, and you can look. And so we're coming now into Aquarius. And we'll have another 13,000 years, before we get back to the top, the golden age again. But we've made the shift in our time. So moving away from the dark and coming back to the light. And it's just going to get better and better and better and better. So we're the first generation, if you will, I suppose, who have come over that hill and are looking towards the glorious future, this golden age again, the awakening. We're that generation that's starting to embody those principles. And so in our lifetime, if we can do as much as we can pass on in our DNA to the next generation more of those ancient secrets, more of that wisdom. So by the time another 13,000 years has gone, we're back in the age of Leo, the enlightenment will be even higher frequency, even better than it was the last time. But, if we do a bit more now in this lifetime, and we don't leave it to chance and fate and really engage with it, we might get some wisps of it. We might be able to experience some thick magic in our own lives, mess about with some elements, move some things, have some, what do you call it? Yeah, that. Yeah, all these magical things, healing and all of that. Like Deborah will vouch for me, the Incas, they have a prophecy, don't they, about there being these 7 levels. And if you look at alchemy, there's 7 levels, there's 7 chakras, all of these different manifestations of this concept of going through these different levels. So 7 tiers of power in these people, and they say that no one's yet got to level 5, and level 5 people would be someone who could heal any ailment in any body just with one touch. So if you're a master of the consciousness that's in between the space of all things, and you really believe that and you own that, then of course you could just touch and command that all of that which isn't in harmony comes back into harmony. And would that not just be curing all ailments with one touch? So that's what I suppose it needs to be, an avatar, to embody all of that, to know all of that. And so, yeah, that's where I believe we're headed. That's what I think is going on, and that's what this Age of Aquarius is all about.